Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the idea of being is power in Plato's dialogue Sophist. It's one of his last dialogues, if not the last, and I'm going to be discussing its relation to earlier dialogues and also its relation and implication for future philosophy of others and also Plato's philosophy. Basically that's going to be the thesis statement of this video. So to start out, I think it's important to note that what is being, if being is said to be power? What is being and what is power? So being is a sense of existing. Basic. Power is something which is power is the relation of affected and effect. So being is power. Being has the relation of being. Being has the relation of being affected and to effect. Now this would mean that I'm positing a dynamic or dynamis in the Latin term, which would be far more keen to Plato's original understanding of being, of power. Now this is important to note that there's this idea of the twofold distinction of the affected and to effect. Now this can also be said as the for itself and the in relation. For itself meaning to be affected by, when a being is affected and is affected by, that is a for itself. And the in relation is the affecting the other. Okay, so that's kind of the theoretical position we're going to be jumping off of from here. So now we're going to get into a specific example. The problem of the lie, I will call it. So there's this idea that, okay, how is it possible to lie? This is a question Socrates would ask in Cratylus, and I think Etherio as well, Etherio as well, that dialogue. These are before the Sophists, and I think that Socrates would say, how is it possible to lie if when you are lying, you are saying that what is not? What is not. So you're stating that something is nothing. But if something is nothing, wouldn't that nothing then become something? That's the idea. Now this would be known as determinate negation. That's a kind of a complicated word, so I'll explain it. When you negate something, when you claim something is nothing, when you say that this is nothing, a lie is a sense of nothing. That is a determination of a something inherently. This is why lies are possible, as the Sophist kind of goes into this. This is where Plato solves the quote-unquote problem of the lie through Socrates. Well, in the Sophist, it's through the theatric stranger is the character. It's not Socrates actually, but in earlier dialogues it is Socrates which issues the problem of the lie. So the problem of the lie is again solved by recognizing that nothing is always something, because when you determine nothing, it is always a something. You cannot determine nothing. You always determine a something. This is to say that in every relation of non-being, there is an underlying sense of being. I'll give an example. We'll go to Plato's forms, okay? So Plato's forms are A1. The ideal of chair is A1. It is a chair. It's a singular. It is a whole. All that. But it's not the one. Just like the ideal of table is A1. But the table and chair are different. They are themselves, in itself, they are a sense of being. But in relation, the table and the chair have a relation of non-being. They are an other to each other. This is, again, Plato's idea. This is in the first part of the video, where the discussion of the for itself and the in relation is discussed. So, again, the forms are in themselves as A1, as a ideal chair. The table is in itself as one, as the ideal table. But there's that relation of non-being. And we understand that relation of non-being through the solution to the problem of the lie. Now, returning back to the start of the video with the dynamic nature of being. Why don't we use just the English term dynamic here? Well, dynamic tends to mean that a multitude of alternatives in something, okay? That isn't entirely what Plato's getting at here. It is the idea of affected and the to affect. Again, the in itself and the for itself. This is monumental for Plato's ethic, for Plato's metaphysics, because you are positing a sense of intrinsic harmony. This would lead you to the understanding of the one. The one is the unity of existence. It is the unity of being. So, because you have that in relation to, which is itself a non-being when you differentiate something, that differentiation is a non-being, but there is an underlying being to it because you can't differentiate a nothing. Okay, that was a little bit confusing. So I'm going to try and explain a little bit better, but again, this is a little bit more difficult than just a lot of other Plato's ideas, that this requires more, I guess, abstract thinking than just the idea of forms and stuff. So I'm going to try and explain a little bit more, but we will see if I'm successful. So the for itself versus the in relation. This is the dyadic or dynamis nature of being as such, or qua being. But I think that this also has some sort of epistemic implications on Plato's philosophy as well. So in Plato's seventh letter, which is the only letter which I say we, but those who read Plato understand as Plato's actual words. A lot of letters were misattributed to Plato, and this kind of myth of various letters, the first six actually, known why it's the seventh letter. These first six letters were sort of misattributed to Plato throughout history, and we are pretty sure that the seventh letter is Plato. I mean, this is like the vast scholarly consensus, so I'm pretty safe in assuming this. And so Plato says here that knowledge is defective. Why is knowledge defective? Well, because there's that sense of non-being underlying the relationship of knowledge to knowledge. This would be saying that there really is no absolute knowledge. Knowledge is always in relation to a something. But that knowledge is always possessing a non-being because it is, while for itself, it is in relation to an other as non-being. Let's say that the Philosopher King has knowledge of the ideal sense of justice. We'll go back to basic republic, okay? So the Philosopher King has the ideal sense of justice, okay? They have the knowledge. That's cool, great. But that knowledge is defective because they don't have an absolute, because they don't have knowledge of everything else. This is why knowledge is defective, and this is very different from Plato's understanding in earlier dialogues, that knowledge itself is like this absolute thing that, okay, but when Plato recognizes the super important idea that I've been talking about with the problem of the lie, exemplifying through the being is power quote in the Sophist, the knowledge has to be defective because knowledge possesses that relation of non-being to an other. Okay, so that's kind of the entire video in terms of actually what Plato said. We're going to go into some more like later philosophy and then some like misunderstandings of this quote, basically. So later philosophy would see it like Hegel. So the philosopher George Friedrich Hegel, in his book Science of Logic, said that there is there's the in itself and the for itself in relation to otherness. So again, you posit the other, you posit the chair versus the table, okay? And that relation of non-being is the difference between the chair and table. The chair and table are not the same. They are in relation of non-being. They're in a relation of otherness. The chair and the table are respectively, meaning that the chair is for itself, the table is for itself, but the power, the being of both is always possessing that sense of non-being in relation. So this would be Hegel's idea, and Hegel took a lot from Plato, took a lot from Socrates, wouldn't say he's a Platonist by any means, but took a lot from Plato and a lot from Socrates, and he quite liked this statement that being is power, and this kind of influenced a lot of his thinking, in my view. Now we're going to get into someone who's a pretty controversial figure. Now, the famous philosopher Martin Heidegger, he had a seminar, he did a seminar series in his classes that he taught in I think Berlin in the 1940s on Plato's Sophist. Now, he recognized that the twofold nature of being, which is for itself and in itself, but he neglected to understand what power is. He saw power as just this idea of like a multitude of alternatives, which again, power is the affected and the to affect. Power thus possesses a passive and an actual relation. So power isn't just like affecting someone. Power possesses that passive relationship as well, and the actual. So that's kind of an issue with Heidegger's understanding of the dialogue sophist. And we can kind of go a little bit more. We're going in chronological historical order. The next person on our list would be the philosopher Gilles Deleuze, French guy, big Nietzschean. He was a big fan of Spinoza as well. And he saw Nietzsche's will to power as will itself possesses that power. Being is power in Deleuze. That will is itself the power. There is no will to power, there is just the will of power itself. Okay? So you would take this, that being is power as a will is power. So this is why a lot of more educated people on Deleuze than I am, and probably will ever be. It's not my forte, and but they have a deep understanding that Deleuze was a pure Platonist. That Deleuze did not overturn Plato, as he said in his earlier books, like Difference and Repetition, which is a book I have read. I need to reread it. I didn't understand much of it because, again, my knowledge on Deleuze is pretty bad. But Deleuze understood that he was a pure Platonist because he saw that Plato recognized that being is power, and then through Deleuze's reading of Nietzsche, this was exemplified. So yeah, that's kind of the trajectory of this concept of being is power over time and the misunderstanding from Heidegger. So I'm going to go over a quick summary. Basically, being is power. Being is existence. Power is the affected and the to affect. The passive and the active role are both within the category of power in Plato. Okay? Next thing I'm going to talk about is the determinate negation. Again, when you determine a nothing, you are inherently bringing a something. The problem of the lie exemplifies this for Socrates. And in the earlier dialogue, Cratylus, there was this question of how can someone lie when they are saying that what is not. Only through the relation of non-being, different from absolute non-existence, because an existing non-being is a something. It is negating, which is in turn bringing a something, okay? So this is that dialectical, you could say, understanding in Plato's metaphysics, which I would ascribe to. I read Plato through Hegel as a follower of Hegel or Hegelian, whatever you want to call it. So this is what I would subscribe to as an understanding of Plato that I would agree with. So it's kind of going to be the end of the video. Again, this is a pretty advanced video. I'm not gonna like say this is just like fucking basic shit. It's not. This is pretty confusing stuff, and I totally understand if like more introductory videos on Plato you might need to look at or whatever, or you need to read Plato before, but this is getting deep into philosophy. I totally get that. But yeah, I just want to make this video because I quite love that statement. I think it's very fundamental to Plato's mature system of metaphysics, which is something which I enjoy more than the kind of societally recognized system that people think he has. But yeah. it's going to kind of do it. Subscribe down below and like the video, and maybe I'll do more videos on Plato. Probably will, but I think my next video is going to be on Jacques Lacan and getting into his system of psychoanalysis. So yeah, y'all have a great day, and thank you.